Hey folks, Wally DM here, and today we're going to take a look at a trap that you could put in a flooded dungeon or a temple. Now the original trap itself comes from the Isle of Dread. In fact, it's on Taboo Island, room number 44. Now there are some 5th edition conversions out there, so I looked up both the 5e conversions plus the trap from the Isle of Dread, and this is what I came up with. But don't worry, if you're not playing the Isle of Dread, you can still use this trap and just copy and paste it into your adventure. Now this is a little bit more of an old school trap, so I'm really excited to see what you think about this and if old school traps like this have a place in today's game. But let's get started. Take a look at our trap because our adventurers are really in for it. Today we're going to take a look at the fire trap from the Isle of Dread. Now before we get started with today's video, I do want to mention that Dungeon Dad, Mr. Trask, and myself are launching a Kickstarter in summer 2022. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the link below and follow our Kickstarter page so you can be notified on launch. And if you want to see some of my previously written products, you can check out my puzzle book, Wally DM's Journal of Puzzle Encounters, available now on DriveThruRPG. Now let's get started with the video. So in this trap, our adventurers are going to enter this area here, which is labeled as number 44 on the map in the Isle of Dread. Now, this is not going to be a new thing, but our adventuring party have been traveling in 5 feet of water. So in my display here, I've added a few things to try to simulate that. And that is with this blue tile here is going to show approximately 5 feet of water. And as you can see, most of our folks are going to be able to keep their heads up, but our poor little gnome is going to be underwater the entire time. I'm really interested to find out what this gnome has been doing to keep its head above water. But regardless, again, they have been traveling in this 5 feet of water for quite some time, and now they come up to a part and they can see this door. And again, if we can imagine that the water is 5 feet up to the door, so they can just see the top of it. Now, as they're traveling through, unless they're being extremely careful, our lead person is going to trip the trap. And if you can see right here, we have a very thin wire that is running across the bottom of this room. And when this wire is tripped, it's going to release a bunch of oil into the area. And we'll denote this with this black circle. So this oil is now starting to disperse in the water. And as this happens, it's not written this way in the Isle of Dread, but I am going to recommend that we roll for initiative. Now, our trap is going to act on initiative count 20. So let's assume that our trap's going first. So with the oil dispersed, anyone in the area of this oil is going to take some extra damage. But there are going to be igniters that are on the sides of the walls, and it's going to catch this oil on fire. So not only are the characters in 5 feet of water, but they're also in oil, and now the oil is on fire. The water is on fire, and all hell is breaking loose. But now, of course, we can try to circumvent the trap. If any of our characters are able to carefully search the area, this water is going to be fairly dark. They're not going to be able to see down into this, and it's going to be a very thin wire. As you can tell, I'm using a small piece of thread. You can barely see that on the video itself. So I'm going to set this at a very high DC, and only if they're searching are they going to find this, and I'm going to put this at least a perception check of 20. And they're going to need to be searching this area in particular very careful. So it is going to take some time if they're going to search this entire room with the 5 feet of water, and they're just going to go 5 foot by 5 foot and make their way to the door. That's going to take a lot of time. But regardless, let's say that our adventurers are used to this 5 feet of water. They come through here, they trigger the trap, the oil squirts out, the flames ignite the oil, everything is burning, and then we're going to roll for initiative. We have that 20 count, and our trap acts. So at this, each creature that's in the area is going to take 3d6 of fire damage, but they are allowed a DC 11 dexterity saving throw to take half damage. Now, if any of the characters succeed on this by a result of 5 or more, so if they roll a 16 or higher, then they are going to be able to duck underneath the water and they're not going to take any damage. So now that we have our fire on top of the water, perhaps a few of the characters are underneath, and we're going on an initiative count. And of course, you're going to want to use your difficult terrain or your swimming rules as you see fit. So now the oil that is in this room is going to continue to burn for 5 more rounds, and it's going to produce smoke, and it's going to consume all of the air in the room. So any creature that is above the water is going to take a d4 minus 2 of fire damage at the start of each of its turns. So if it's this character here's turn, they're going to roll a d4 and they're going to subtract 2, and they're going to take that much in smoke inhalation. And of course the minimum on that is going to be 1 hit point of damage. So now after this wire has been tripped, I'm sure our characters are going to want to get out of here, so they're going to come up to this door here. And again, we're looking at it being about 5 feet of water. So just the top of this door can be seen. Now this door is swollen, but it can be opened with a DC 13 strength check to force it open if the character is above water, or a DC 16 strength check if the character is underneath the water. Now, if the characters are able to force open this door, then all of this water is going to rush through the door into this next landing, and in this next area, our characters are going to be slammed up against this portcullis. Now, as a reminder, we are still on an initiative system, and the water is going to drain through this portcullis and down the stairs that are behind it, but it's going to take 10 rounds or 1 minute. So during that entire time, we're going to keep our initiative order, and when it's each character's turn, they're going to take a d4 minus 2 hit points of damage, again a minimum of 1, and they're going to take that at the start of their turn and each turn afterwards, unless they make a DC 13 strength check to be able to stand up and raise their head above this rushing water. And again, you've got to imagine all of this water, there was 5 feet of it that was putting all this pressure on this door. Once it was open, it's just gushing through, going through the portcullis and down the stairs into the level below. Now that damage is going to be in addition to the initial damage when they came rushing through the door and hit into the portcullis. They're also going to take a d4 minus 2 with a minimum of 1 hit point of bludgeoning damage for that as well. Now this 1d4 minus 2 hit points of damage we've been talking about is fully adjustable by you, the Dungeon Master. If you just want to make it a d4 of bludgeoning damage, I think that would be okay. And in the original Isle of Dread from the Beckme series, it was 1 to 2 hit points of damage, and in the 5th edition conversion, that's where I found the 1d4 minus 2, but it would make sense for a simple d4 roll. Now our trap is not yet complete. There is a lever that is along the east wall, and this is the lever that activates the portcullis. So if our characters decide to activate this lever while the water is still rushing through, again, that water is taking a minute or 10 rounds, and again, we are in an initiative order, so if they pull this lever during that time, then this portcullis is going to raise, and our characters are going to be swept through here, and they're going to go down a set of stairs to level 3 of this temple dungeon, and that water that is pulling them down the stairs is going to cause an extra 3d10 of bludgeoning damage as they go down the stairs through the rushing water. But now if they wait until all of the water has emptied, then they're going to be able to pull the lever, the portcullis will raise, and then they'll be able to walk down the stairs without further issue. So this is a complex trap that has a lot going on, so I think a quick recap is in order. First, our gnome is not having a good time. Being only 3 or 4 foot tall in a dungeon or a temple that is flooded with 5 feet of water can't be the best scenario for him. But regardless, we come into this room, we're going to trip this trap unless we are extremely observant, and even with a 10-foot pole, yes, the trusty 10-foot pole, if it strikes this wire, is going to trigger it. It's going to fill with oil, we're going to roll for initiative, there's going to be fire, there's going to be smoke, we're going to break down this door, we're going to be smashed up against this portcullis, and we're going to try to keep our head above water, we're going to try to pull a lever, this portcullis is going to open, and then we're either going to be rushed down this set of stairs that's behind it into the dungeon below, or hopefully we took our time and able to walk down. I'm excited to see how this works for you. Be sure to come back in the future when you've run this trap and let me know how it goes. So that is the fire trap that you can find in the Isle of Dread. Now this is an old adventure, but you can can find 5th edition conversions of it if that's something you're into. And of course, you don't have to be playing the Isle of Dread to be able to use this trap. It'll fit in basically any temple or dungeon, especially if you're going for a theme where it is flooded with water. Now, as you can tell, this is a very old school type of a trap, but I think adding the D20 for initiative and having the trap go on an initiative count adds a lot to it. And I also think I would probably just roll a D4 for the damage instead of messing around with the 1 to 2 points or the 1d4 minus 2. It was a little bit confusing for me. Just a D4 should be fine. Now, this video was by a request of one of my subscribers. They wanted to see an old school trap from the Isle of Dread. Again, this one is number 44 from Taboo Island. If there's an old school trap from one of the old adventure modules that you want to see me do a video on, be sure to leave a comment below. So that's all I have for you today. What did you think of the fire trap from the Isle of Dread? Have you run this adventure before, and have you used this trap? Is this trap something that you could see using in one of your future games? And if so, what would you do differently? Be sure to leave a comment below and let's get a discussion going. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.